Hello and welcome to the complete Pea Auger installation guide for your MacDon header. Pea Auger Draper upper cross augers are made at Parts ASAP's Combine World Manufacturing Facility. Let's just jump right in. Part 1 is pre-assembling the components of your Pea Auger. Let's start with making sure we've got everything. A fairly basic first step, but an important one. You should just make sure that you have everything in your Pea Auger kit to get started. Here are your main components, which include 2 augers, your center bracket, drive side bracket, idle side bracket, and the idler hub. Here are your hydraulic parts, which include 2 thicker hydraulic hoses, 1 thinner hydraulic hose, 1 double-ended hose coupler, 2 smaller motor couplers, and 1 small T-fitting. There is also a small elbow fitting that you'll find pre-installed in your Pea Auger motor. Next, you'll find a resealable bag with lots of hardware, which will include a bearing lock collar and a number of bolts. Some will have lock washers and some will have spring washers. First, make sure you have those inside hubs on the inside of each Pea Auger well greased. And then we will focus on our drive side bracket. That's the one with the motor on it. Secure that, and then a simple pair of pliers will take those caps off. You are going to notice some of that paint will flake off if you use pliers, so a quick little blow-off will make sure any paint flakes won't get in your hydraulic lines. Once you have removed the caps, we're going to want to put on a couple of couplers. There's 2 in your kit that are like this. Each has a flat side, and that flat side goes down and into those valves. This is how you will tie your Pea Auger motor into the existing hydraulics on your header. Once you have those inserted, you will want to tighten them up. This is the drive side, so from the cab this is going to go on your left. Once you have that firm and secure, you should install it onto the left-hand side auger. You can tell the 2 apart because the holes are closer to the edge on this side. This indicates that one is the left-hand side auger. And that also matches with the diamond plate that's at the end of the motor and bracket assembly. Next, move on to the smaller bolts that have the spring washers on them. They are going to be smaller than the other bolts in your kit. You will need to tighten them, and because the bracket and motor assembly is a little awkward to work with, you're probably going to need to spin it around slightly just to access everything. For some of these, you'll be able to use your power tools. Once those are all secure, you'll repeat a similar process on the outside of the right-hand side. The 4 bolt holes there are much closer to the center, so that's how you tell you are working on the correct section. This is the idler hub shaft, and it goes on with the 1/2-inch bolts with spring washers. Most of the bolts in your kit are 1/2-inch. The process for adding these will be much simpler than the previous. The installation guide suggests these be torqued to 45 foot-pounds. If you're not using a torque wrench, that's fine, just ensure they are tight. Next, we'll turn our attention to the center mounting bracket, which goes in the middle of the header. First, make sure it is well greased. You'll find zerks right at the shaft joints, and you can use a grease gun to access them. They require a substantial amount of grease. Once you've got a generous amount of grease in there, you just want to move those shafts around a bit and make sure it's spread around. That will conclude the steps for assembling our components. Next, we'll want to actually go ahead and install that center bracket that we were just working with.
This one and this one is different.
As this tech is pointing out, one side is a little bigger, a little higher up, and that larger side is going to go towards the back of the header when you're attaching it to the mounting brackets. First, a short, little note on safety. Make sure you've got the pickup reel up and install some safety stops before installing all these components. And if you're going to walk on the drapers, make sure you're either along the back line or the center line. Move on to the brackets here at the center. We are working on the right-hand side from the cab, and it will be these longer 1/2-inch bolts. You only have 2 of these. They're a little longer, and they'll have the lock nuts with them. Attach and secure these points. As the tech is now pointing out, the left-hand side one from the cab stays empty.
No, their side. No, their side.
And now we're to part 3, where we are going to install our right-hand side idler bracket and auger. First, we are actually going to lift the Pea Auger from the right-hand side onto the header. The tech is grabbing the bracket here, and that bracket will bolt onto the factory mount at the end of the header. Now, you should lift these Pea Augers onto the header. You can do this with 2 people, but if you do have a machine for lifting, it will make the process a little easier. You'll move it up and over so that it fits right in between the center and the end, and then you should be able to move it perfectly into place. Then you'll locate the hex shaft that comes out of that center bracket, and you'll insert that into the hex hub at the inside end of the Pea Auger. And remember, during step 1, we made sure these were sufficiently greased so everything should slide together. As you slide that hub onto that shaft, you want to make sure that you're also lining up the 2 holes at the end of the Pea Auger with the grease zerks that are right underneath them. The hole on either Pea Auger that is closest to the center is going to be to grease those center shafts that we just greased up at the end of the first part. And the other one is to grease the hubs. We've already greased these, but now is a good time to double check that both are well greased, and then we'll continue to slide the parts together. You should leave about an inch of space so that everything lines up correctly. You'll see the tech is going to move it a little closer to ensure all the zerk holes are lined up. Next, we'll go to the outer end. We're going to install the end bracket that will hold your shaft in place. It will be the one that has the collar on it. To install, you will slide the collar on. The 2 larger bolts there will have already been pre-installed, so you don't have to worry about them. Though we will still need to tighten them in a second.
What?
Line them up, and at this point you may have to use a rubber mallet to get them lined up ideally. After that, you will use 2 half-inch bolts with lock nuts to attach, but again, make sure all the holes are lined up. The bolts go in different directions, and once they are through, you should fully tighten. Once you're done assembling this part, you'll want to slide on the lock collar that you will find in your hardware bag, and then tighten it with the set screw that will lock the Pea Auger shaft into the collar and hold it in place. Now, you'll tighten everything up that you have left slightly loose to maneuver. And with that, you will be complete with the right-hand idler side. In part 4, we will install the left-hand side. This is the side with the motor, and first, we are going to hoist it up onto the header. Again, 2 people can do this, but a lifting machine is always helpful. Once again, you're going to want to start at the center and confirm that it's on that hex shaft. You should leave roughly an inch. Next, line up the drive side bracket with the mounts as seen in the video. Once that is in place, confirm that everything is properly aligned, and then you'll use 2 of the half-inch bolts that were supplied in your kit. Using a rubber mallet is helpful, and please notice that the bolts run in opposite directions. The tech in the video is using a punch to help line everything up, and afterwards, he will tighten these bolts. This will complete the left-hand side installation. With both sides installed, we'll move on to installing the hydraulics. To start, bring over the two thicker hydraulic lines and the large double-ended coupler, as well as a bucket for the draining hydraulic fluid. In the video, notice the tech is connecting the smaller end onto the Pea Auger motor, and the larger ones will be used to tie into the overall hydraulic system on the header. Attach these hoses and tighten them down, and then we'll move on to hooking into your header's hydraulic system. As the tech is pointing out, if the hydraulics are properly connected, the auger will run counterclockwise. You can see in the video that this is how the hydraulics will connect to the motor. The top line in red is going to connect to the canvas drive motor line, which will push the canvas. In blue, you can see the 90-degree attachment, which we will remove and replace with the hose from the top line that connects to the Pea Auger motor. Now take the line from the bottom of the motor, in blue, and connect that to the disconnected return line. This has the two-ended coupler, and once attached, it will complete the system. Moving on from the diagram, let's look at this process in real life. Start with the bottom hose from the bottom of the Pea Auger, and make sure it is tight to the double-ended coupler. Again, here, we are using the bottom return hose, and that will connect to the double-ended coupler. Now, start work on the canvas drive motor line by disconnecting the 90-degree fitting. In the video, notice that the tech has the hose from the top without a coupler from the drive line in his hand, which he will attach onto the header. The hose with the coupler, the return line from the bottom, attaches into your 90-degree return line. That will complete your circuit, and your Pea Auger will be attached to your header's hydraulics. Again, if you have hooked this up incorrectly, you'll notice it will run clockwise. That won't work very well, and you'll notice immediately.
Pea Auger, and go back, go down to the canvas motor.
Ensure all lines and bolts are sufficiently tight, and now is a good time to strap everything up and out of the way. Now is a good time to remind you about other great products from Parts ASAP for MacDon headers. We are the manufacturer of the Draper drum, a thinner, heavier-duty replacement auger drum with no slip clutch, longer fingers, and more aggressive flighting. We also produce a paddle finger for MacDon headers called the Finger that doesn't require ties or clips and is installed exactly like a factory part. Back to installation. All we have left to complete is the hydraulic drain kit. Start by removing the plastic cap and then hook that up to the thinner hydraulic hose. The two thicker hydraulic hoses we just installed on the motor, and this is where the thinner one is installed. It's for the drain kit here and connects to the elbow fitting. Afterwards, be sure it's nice and tight. If you have an existing Pea Auger that did not have a drain kit, we have a complete drain kit install video as well. Now, unhook this hydraulic line from the header drive, then you install the T-fitting. You can either install the T-fitting onto the factory fitting, or you could remove the factory fitting and install the T-fitting in its place. Now, reattach that factory header drive motor line that we just unhooked into the T-fitting. And then hook your line from the end of the Pea Auger motor onto the other end so both of those are now hooked up to the one line. Then all we have to do is just tighten all of these up on all three ends of the T-fitting. After you ensure everything is properly tightened, you will have successfully installed your Pea Auger. The first time you run your header with your Pea Auger, you will want to turn the hydraulic flow to the canvas and the Pea Auger off, then engage the header. Then you will want to slowly increase the flow and observe it is working properly. And that should be it. Just check for leaks and make sure you keep it greased. Congratulations on installing your Pea Auger for MacDon. You can find a full installation manual on our website. You will also find replacement parts on our website. But if you've purchased your Pea Auger within a year, you should be covered by our warranty, so give us a call. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you found this video helpful. At Parts ASAP, we understand your time is often one of the most scarce resources in your work. That's just one of the reasons we truly work our hardest to serve our customers with knowledgeable, smart, and simple resources and helpful assistance. Thanks again.